What do you regret about not having served out your term as governor?
I think the failure to stay true to the investments in education and infrastructure that we had put on track. Now, having said that, I don't want anybody to think it would have been easy to continue those investments at a time of economic distress. When the economy tipped into the Great Recession, it got increasingly difficult. The revenue simply wasn't there. But I think we've also seen stories about how healthcare reform has not taken the necessary trajectory. And the importance of healthcare reform is that if you think about the state budget, you have two vast pools of spending, education and healthcare. And we needed to control healthcare in order to afford education spending. And that's what we're trying to do.
As a controller, you oversee a staff of hundreds. Would you hire your opponent to work in your administration?
Gosh, I haven't thought about that.
Well, now that you have an opportunity to think about that.
I'll wait until they'd be presumptuous to answer that question before September 10th.
Why is Scott Stricker uniquely disqualified to be controller?
Not sure. You know, I've said throughout this campaign, I'm not going to pass judgment on Scott because that's not the sort of campaign I want
But
to
you
do.
have. You've actually spent a great deal of time passing judgment on him in debates and in public. And
Yeah,
you've
but
been
not
very open about saying that his legacy is one where he's essentially not left very much to be said for. So you actually have passed judgment.
I've said that after 20 years in governance, he has not left any significant marks on public policy. That is true. But I have not gone as far as to say he's uniquely disqualified from serving, which was your phrase, which is a little edgier in tone. And so I'm trying to remain, sort of maintain an equilibrium and balance in the commentary. You can draw contrasts and say, look, after 20 years, there's no significant public policy impact that you've had, and then contrast that to my record where I think there are significant impacts without sort of going the extra step.
I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
You are not voting for Anthony Weiner for mayor.
I guess I did say that on TV.
You also said that. Do we know who you're voting for?
Do you not know?
Are you going to tell us?
No. Ambiguity is sometimes a good thing. Something I've learned over time that, 8 years ago I would have answered the question, but I've realized, you know, it's better just to leave it unanswered.
Tell me what it is that you think your greatest lesson has been personally in these last couple of years where you have not been in public service, you have in fact not been an elected official.
That sometimes patience is a great virtue. And there are times when we forged ahead on issues where I thought we were right. And you know, I'll give you one where I actually don't regret the decision, the driver's licenses. We were right to raise it. We had the coalition. What happened was the coalition splintered after enormous pressure from Blue Dogs and then other things that were sort of bizarrely effective, you know, the intersection of presidential debates and all that. It was an odd confluence of events. But even though I would, once again, in the same circumstances, move forward with that, we have enormous coalition support with it. I appreciate that the patience you need to move public policy is sometimes frustrating.
And that speaks to a lesson that you've learned as regards the policy making.
Right.
I'm thinking specifically of something that you could impart that you've learned on a personal level, if it's the same lesson and how it applies personally.
I'll give it to you in 3 words: hubris is terminal.
Again.
Sorry?
I said again, hubris is terminal. Yes, go on, tell us more.
That's it. I think that captures it all. I mean, you just need you just need to appreciate the limitations on one's place, position, authority in every respect.
One of the charges that your opponent has leveled is that in the time when the city was at different critical points, including when you were beset by a natural disaster and he was out mucking things out of public housing buildings, you were nowhere to be seen and nowhere to be heard. That your great fortune could have, in fact, speaking of that could have been used more effectively, could have been used effectively to help.
You know, it's kind of a bizarre critique.
But it is one he's leveled.
Well, I'm not going to take the bait. I mean, he was in public office. He went out and did what he wanted to do. That's great. I was a private citizen on TV, as he's pointed out, cynically, you know, critically. I'm not sure why critically, but using at the time of Sandy, I was at Current TV, and we had a lot of the folks who were helping and working and organizing on the program to try to do what journalists do, which is to inform the public shed light on where things were going well, where they weren't going well. That's what you're supposed to do when you're in the journalistic world. That's exactly what we did. I was taking care of friends, helping people. I mean, I didn't put out press releases. I was a private citizen. So I'm not quite sure why he's saying.
I guess the point that is being made in a larger sense is, what were you doing to help the city that you love so, and that you now want to serve as controller?
I was doing what private citizens do, which is to work to do what I do as a journalist. And he also attacked our family's foundation for frivolous and kind of unfortunate reasons. And if you want to ask what we've done to help the city, we are among the largest donors in the history of CCNY, private donors, because we believe in public education. We had the Museum of Natural History build a wing to teach, an amazing wing, right? Hundreds of thousands of kids go through it every year, the science of evolution. We support the public theater to make sure Shakespeare in the Park is free. These are, I don't need to list the numbers, very significant donations. We have been fortunate to succeed in the city, and we give an enormous amount back to the city, to the cultural institutions, the public institutions that permit others to succeed. And so I find his attack on that ground, frankly, a little bit offensive.
Well, I suppose it leads to the larger charge that your wealth and the resources that you're leveling in this campaign put him at a disadvantage.
He's going to spend as much as I am. It's pure and simple. And he has the most powerful interest groups in the city lining up against me and raising lots of money. The moment I got him, it was independent expenditures were announced from Wall Street and elsewhere, and that's fine. I mean, I don't quibble with their right to do it. That's the First Amendment. They believe in it. But I am not going to be left silent in the context of that. And there have been a few tabloid headlines about me, which don't get listed on his campaign spending report. There are folks out there who want to say what they want to say. That's great. I don't quibble with that, but I will not be silent. But bizarrely, in the context of all this, he's going to spend as much as I.
Do you enjoy the fight? Do you enjoy the hunt, as it were?
Parts of it. I mean, there are moments when you kind of grimace, but you need to wear body armor in this business. And if you're in it, politics for me is not a profession, it's a cause. And that's why I've done what I've done. And that part...
personally fulfilling, though, and the reason you do it...
Because it's a cause. Mm-hmm. And not because I'm perpetually looking for the next office, regardless of what it is. I have sought positions where I believed I could effectuate change that was important to me. That's why Attorney General, that's why Governor, and that's why Controller.
That's some cost to your family.
Mm-hmm.
In terms
Big
of
cost.
Sure.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Very little. I mean, I don't talk much about it, but yeah, they're not easy.